So nice to start our panel immediately after the lunch, and to make it worst, we don't even have a slide, right? We are only talking. Okay. To set the context, automotive industry is at a very fascinating turning point where the vehicles are no longer getting defined by the hardwares, right? And softwares are increasingly defining the performance, the new features, safety, and even the convenience of the customers. Now, we keep hearing from many people that today a car is actually a computer on the wheels, right? And we all agree to that. Now, in the same context, when we talk, the OTA updates has become a game changer for the whole automotive industry. The automakers can actually fix the issues today on the fly, right, remotely. They can reduce the physical recalls of the cars, and they can introduce new feature updates. This is post-purchase, what we are talking. And the biggest benefit of the OTA updates is opening up of the new revenue of the business models for the auto industry, right? So, having said all these opportunities, there are also some key challenges what would pop up with these opportunities, and these challenges are around the safety and security. The second is on the software lifecycle management complexities. They are going to increase further. Then third is on the fleet management. How do you manage fleet management? And finally, the business impact of this specific transformation that we are talking today. So, with experts from OEM, engineering service providers, and also from the tool or validation specialists, we are going to discuss around these areas what I spoke just now, and we are also going to see the dimensions from business, strategy, and also from the technical perspective. Okay, now without spending more time, let's start our discussion. So for everyone's information, we have split this whole panel discussion into 4 rounds. So this is round 1, we are going to start, and the theme is the big picture, right? Why the OTA is a game changer for SDVs. The first question, I would actually start with Karthik and Satish, and I would allow Karthik to start the answer for this question. The question is from an OEM perspective, and Satish for you from the ESP's perspective. How are the OTAs updates transforming customer experience? Okay, and opening up new business models such as feature on demand and remote servicing. If you can throw some light on this.
Group India Private Limited, dealing with connected solutions for trucks, buses, construction equipment, and for all Volvo Group products. And now to this question, Kiran, I just wanted to start with a fact. A known fact is that today, if a commercial truck in Europe visits an aftermarket workshop for it could be software updates or diagnostics, hardware changes, for anything, on an average it incurs a cost of 1,400 euros. 1,400 euros on an average for the customer. So that's a big money, right? So especially in commercial segment, it's going to be very, very important for the vehicle to be on the road. The uptime is the key. So, and having said that, any remote capability is going to be vital when managing a vehicle. It could be over-the-air update or configuration of any of the features. For that matter, remote management is the key. And today at Volvo, we have 2 million connected vehicles from US to Australia and 1 million trucks alone. And if we have to, call these vehicles, for the features that you talked about, update of the nodes or hypercomputers, or even configuring the connected services, because today, it's very, very, dynamic model. We work with the subscription model, and it is the customer who can choose, what kind of services they want. And that could be enabled, disabled based on the regulations, based on the needs, based on the geography, based on the temperatures somebody, in the earlier session was talking about. And with all this said, it's going to be very, very difficult if we are not going to have remote management of update of the software. So with that said, I think that's the game changer for a vehicle to be on road and also to keep the customers happy with the services that we offer. And finally, it's not just about the features that we offer as services, but imagining the platform enablers, the tech push aspects that the OEMs develop, and most importantly, the cybersecurity patches. It's very difficult for a commercial customer, fleet owner to put all his or her vehicles onto the workshop and then come for a software or a security update. It's very, very cumbersome. So OTA is the game changer, and for us at Volvo, OTA itself is one of the key service offerings as such. So that's my take here, Kiran.
Thanks, Karthik. I think that was a good perspective on how for the commercial vehicles it is important that they update the softwares over the air regularly and whenever there is a need. Satish.
Yeah. Look at it, in a slightly broader perspective. So if you see, we've been talking about SDV, right? There's multiple reasons why it's important, right? So one is, of course, feature updates and changes of the features or fixes and so on, which is an operational thing which the OEMs want to do. Then there are, very importantly, some of our customers are talking about warranty issues. Like Karthik mentioned, a warranty issue can cause a lot of cost to the OEM. How do you reduce that? Could also be a driver for over-the-air updates. So apart from that, there are security updates as part of the infotainment. There are feature tweaks, configuration changes. So these are all, in our perspective, these are operational things which an OEM wants to do. It reduces the cost for them, right? Then there is function on demand, which is kind of a top line thing, which gives you more additional revenue. And people have started reporting this, right? So it's a good measure if function on demand is working. It was discussed in one of the panels also. Are consumers willing to pay for it? But if you start seeing Tesla has started reporting, right? They make service revenue. Mercedes has reported it. Porsche has reported. Polestar, Rivian, all of these companies have started reporting basically service-based revenue, which means essentially this is going to be an important thing for them, right? So now having this as a context, OTA is the key, right? So OTA is the delivery mechanism for this. So this is how we see basically OTA becoming important. Now OTA itself, if you see, is penetrating quite a lot. If you take way back in 2018 or so, they were of the, say, North America, 300 odd models were launched, or 30 of them supported OTA. Today, in 2025, out of the 500 odd models which are launching, 300 of them support OTA. 70% of the cars in China support OTA. And it's expected to become 100% by 2030. Overall, we are looking at a 40% penetration of OTA across the globe. So these are all important things which basically say that, look, this is going to be the key for delivering the services which we are all imagining, which SDV will bring. And that's where we also think that this is going to be a game changer from OEM point of view, from services providers point of view, because this opens up lots of challenges, lots of opportunities to work, and lots of solutions which we can deliver.
Thanks, Satish. I think that was a good global perspective. What you did, how the OTA updates are increasing across the globe, and also the warranty issues and service-based revenues, what we are talking. My next question is to Krishna. So, as the global engineering partners with the OEMs, various OEMs and tier ones you are working, so how are you helping these OEMs to scale the OTA strategies across the markets? And you have a different regulatory connectivity and infrastructure landscape when you talk about different regions. So how are you seeing these as an opportunity for you?
Thanks, Kiran. Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon to my fellow panelists. I'm sure some of the context you already have on why OTA, what is the significance of OTA in a vehicle, whether it's a car, non-passenger segment, and all of that, right? So we are all familiar with how the software gets updated in our mobile. Now, is that as simple as that for a vehicle, which is a system critical aspect of it? Safety and system criticality is very, very important in any vehicle, whether it is a passenger or a non-passenger vehicle, right? So, what we are looking at is what are the challenges and what are the solutions to make OTA happen. For example, I keep defining a normal vehicle has a bill of material, which is a mechanical parts, and you have the parts traceability, right? Now, when you come to a software-defined vehicle or even a non-software-defined vehicle, when you push a software, it becomes a software bomb, and software bomb has to be traced, right? There has to be integrity of the software, and it has to be traced. How did you build that software? What are the different libraries that composed when you push that software into the vehicle, so that you have a traceability, right? The next thing we also look at is, when do you push any software update? I mean, it's first of all, there has to be a consent from the driver that you have to inform and notify that there will be a software update. What is that software update, and when do you want to do it? You won't expect a software update when your vehicle is in a running condition, right? So that's another aspect that we look at it. And for that software update, we also look at, is it a major upgrade or is it just a minor upgrade? Right? So then you also look at what are the connectivity challenges that will come. Right? I mean, for example, if it's a heavy file or a large file that you have to download, when do you do it? Do you do it when the car is parked at home with your Wi-Fi, connected to Wi-Fi, or is it a normal 5G network, and so on and so forth, right? So we look at connectivity being a very, very important aspect when you want to push any software. So that's the second part of it. The third part of it, of course, is when you push any software, what are the testing you have done? What are the critical safety tests you have done? What is the traceability of it? All this comes under regulatory requirements. If there is anything that happens, I mean, today you would have heard a lot of recalls happen because of mechanical failure. I mean, can there be a recall because of a software failure? I mean, if the software stalls your vehicle, then how does that person get the vehicle to your service station at all, right? So these are three things I say we have seen that the OEMs and the software providers have to, or I mean, when I say software provider, anybody, whether it's tier 1 or an ESP like us, when we are doing this, these are the three key things that we look at.
So, thanks, Krishna. I think the best thing I liked was the challenges what you mentioned, also the traceability part, what you said, and the criticality of the updates what we are doing. What kind of software are you trying to? Thanks for that perspective. Now I will go to Deepu and Ravi. They are waiting for you to ask the question. So the OTA, when we talk about the OTAs, they spans safety, security, and also the software life cycle, which is around this flashing, right? We have to test these all over the cloud. So from your perspective, from the LDRA and from the Vayavya labs, when we see, and if you keep the compliance and workflows in mind, what are the biggest risks you see if speed and convenience are prioritized over rigor and traceability? I think this question is coming from the need that you have to be fast to the market delivering, but at the same time, how do you handle the quality, the speed, and the testing parts? I'll start with maybe.
Hello. What my colleagues on the stage talked about, the advantage what OTA brings definitely is a big advantage for it's a game changer for all the OEMs, tier 1 suppliers to provide the latest and greatest software and upgrades onto the system. But the challenge is what we see is multifold, because any advantage you get, it will have the challenges, especially when you see from the compliance perspective. Suppose you want to have a speed and rigor, and you want to ensure that in that process we have moved from static ECUs to a dynamic ECUs, or the evolving platform, which was not earlier seen. The moment you do the ECUs and it is validated, and you have compliance to ISO 26262, 21434, and even for the hardware designs you follow certain 6012 and 601 for the how the layout is done. At any point we cannot compromise, and that's a very important point we have to ensure. The moment you have a OTA and you are trying to upgrade, because the ECU itself, we are not talking about one ECU, there are multiple ECUs. This architecturally has to be thought through. It cannot be done overnight. It has to be evolving over the vehicle architecture. That is the first point. Second part is on the cybersecurity. The moment we talk about cybersecurity comes, it's with your own risk. That means we have 4 layers of cybersecurity protection in a vehicle. One is that at the infrastructure to the telematics level, from telematics to the gateway, from gateway to the CAN buses or Ethernet buses, and from then to ECUs and to the sensors. Now, the moment you get this open, that means your attack surfaces are increased. Then how do I take care of these challenges? That is going to be a big challenge for every OEM and tier 1 to ensure that we have enough security measures in places, whether it is the public key handling or how it can be handled. That becomes a second challenge is what we see. We'll address that, how we can address those challenges. But these are the challenges. What is the third one is, from the my my colleagues here on the stage talked about the traceability, because now you have multiple software, multiple ECUs, multiple software versions, multiple features. How do you manage it? The challenge cannot be managed by earlier like like a OEM or tier 1. Then it becomes a multifold of issues where we see the integration of the challenges related to integration of edge computing. What happens on your ECU side, then that has to be transferred to the cloud, and then some subscription models where it has to be go through the gateway, which has to be secured, and even the flashing of the OTA has to be through a what we call as IAM. That is the way we administer the authorization for the individual people has to be provided, and that needs to be a subscription paid. That means it needs to be connected to the payment gateway of the system. So these are the challenges what we can see it broadly from the OTA coming into the picture.
Okay. Yeah, thanks Kiran, and good afternoon all of you. So since I am coming from a different background, mostly on working on the process, standards and tools. So usually what happens is like I will be invited by a client whenever they think about certification. So that means we are at the final stage. The product prototype is ready. You are planning to start the verification, and then you think about certification, right? So from my perspective and experience, I would like to see this from 2 different angles. So one is from the end user point of view. For the end user, always speed and convenience, that is a preference for him. But as developers or test engineers, for us, we cannot depend on speed and convenience alone, because our safety and security will be compromised. So whether it is the generic embedded software, whether it is OTA, we have to look at whether there is a lean process that can be developed, which can be used for quickly completing all the verification and certification activity for the OTA software. Okay. So primarily what I have seen is it's not because of the awareness. Most of the time people are ignoring the safety and security related aspect, building it right from the beginning. They think about it at a later stage when they have a need of certification. Now, the missing elements, I can just point to 2 or 3 missing elements which I have seen personally. So one is the safety culture. It is very well defined in the ISO 26262 document, but I don't know how many people have taken it seriously and ensured that every people in the organization is aware of that, and safety culture has been inhibited into the people. Okay. If it is there, then only they can think about safety activities and give priority to that, right? Because the rigor depends on the ASIL levels which are allocated to your systems, right? So unless you have that awareness, you cannot do that. So having this safety culture in place is one of the most important element which I would like to focus on. And the second thing is 26262 is one document which defines about a lot of activities, especially the management related activities and concept related product development, installing, decommissioning, and safety analysis, and all those things, everything in a single document. If you look at the other domains, since I work on the other domains, there are multiple set of documents. If you look at aerospace or industrial application, from hardware, system and software perspective, or even from management related activities. So 26262 gives you an opportunity for tailoring the process activities. And I have seen many organizations miss it, and they think about the whole set of activity for any ASIL level, which is really not required. So you can tailor the process activity to define a lean process with the highly recommended activities required for your ASIL level. That will help you to ensure that safety and security is built into the system. And finally, I would like to focus on the planning. So whenever we talk about a safety plan, many a times the DAA will be in place, but the service provider who has taken up the work from the OEM, they are not aware of the safety plan, and because of that, they will not create a refined plan for their next set of activities, maybe the development activity or the verification activity for the software. So these things, if you are considering, I think definitely rigor and traceability will be automatically in place when we compare it with speed and convenience. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Deepu, for that perspective. Now we move to the second round. We'll start with Ravi, and the round is how to deliver safe and secure OT updates. So Ravi, you would agree that today with OTA, the line between the in-vehicle software and the cloud-connected services, this is thinning. This is becoming very narrow nowadays. So what new challenges you think are emerging in functional safety and cybersecurity? If I want to pinpoint with an example, if you have any, that traditional automotive standards don't fully comply or address.
Hello.
Yes.
So basically, in the traditional software development, especially for functional safety and cybersecurity, you have to look from the. We have seen how the evolution has happened from the electrical architecture, what we saw from the morning, how it has evolved from ECU centric to the domain centric and zonal centric to the high performance computing. So now, traditionally, the vehicle electronics or the powertrain and infotainments were have been different functionalities overall, but now they are merging into together. But having said that, the hard real-time requirement, the soft real requirement still remains with the domain controllers, whether you talk about the passive safety or active safety. Now, how do we exactly bring that is to a solution? It's all has to be brought through at the very beginning of the vehicle architecture is defined, because when you define a vehicle architecture, we are talking about integrated 5 things, right from the connected vehicle, cloud computing, cyber security, continuous update, and customer centricity. That covers all the things what we discussed, because customer expects new feature is there, I need to be able to that. We need to have all these things established, so that when I say established, it has to be functionally safe and cyber security wise it is protected. When I say cyber security wise it is protected, you are already, as I mentioned earlier, we have already increased the attack surface, but bringing in the right practices, right processes, right tools like LDRA tools, or which can C certified, because you are connecting from edge computing to the web services, because you need to have a access identity management where reliable person is accessing, and the software needs to be updated. You don't want some hacker to update that because you're already vulnerable. How do I ensure that? And for that there are different methods like public key infrastructure. How do I make it robust? How do I ensure that my access identity management is foolproof, that no hacker can get into that? And also once you have this connectivity through multi-port, the Wi-Fi or 5G connectivity, Bluetooth connectivity, how do we bring that protection mechanism inside my software development, which has to be thought through architecturally? That is one point, how we build the upgrade of the system. But coming back to how do I ensure that already existing legacy systems are there, which have the compute power less, they may not be able to handle all these things upgrades in one go. So there should be a strategy from OEM that okay, from 26 to 27 I go with a certain kind of versions, and then next I'll upgrade the ECUs in the next model. This strategy has to be laid out. As I said, it's the evolving process, and this has to be thought through. And also the major issue what we see is the moment you upgrade a software, your functional safety aspects of earlier what you have validated, safety case or cyber security case, what we call as a functional safety case or argument, becomes null and void. What are the mechanisms we need to put it in, so that my system is still safe for the user and the road user, and at the same time my all certification are still intact. Like we talked about evolving certification, that needs to be there. The other part what it is being is, we talked about S-bomb and H-bomb. We have heard about a hardware bomb, but now the S-bomb is coming. If any component has been vulnerable, and that calls for a mechanism where we continuously monitor the S-bomb if there are any vulnerabilities found, and how do we address them. And this should be, now the system is not only for the, most of the time earlier it was you do a concept development production, you go to production, most of the hardware is done, software is done. But now coming back to the cyber security, it goes beyond the production, and we talked about continuous monitoring and incident reporting. This is because of the, we are opening our attack vectors, attack surfaces. Then how do we address that? Not only one person or one system will be able to address it. Then you need to have a continuous monitoring, like vehicle security operations center, which needs to be maintained by somebody either like OEM, and then if there are vulnerability found in the field, that needs to be addressed, and somebody need to inform us. There are websites which will tell which component, because vector is supplying the component, if there is some vulnerability is found. And how do we, whether somebody needs to tell, hey look Mr. OEM, you have an issue in your software release, but whether that's going to affect your vehicle or not, you can make a decision, no, this doesn't affect my vehicle because my gateway is foolproof enough, this will take care of these vulnerability issues. So that kind of solutions are evolving, and it is a long journey. We have to go with that, and we at Vayavya, we are supporting our journey, especially on the functional safety and cyber security, and whatever validation and all Deepu talk, those should be still adhered to and move a continuous evolution.
Thanks, Ravi. I think that was a very, very insightful answer what you gave, and I like that vehicle architecture thing. What you said, that we have to start from there. So I come to Deepu. I'll just continue what Ravi said. The question is, in OTA the software keeps getting updated, right? And it's going to be very frequent. You don't know, I mean, how frequent it is going to happen. So from the tool point of view, how can the safety validation frameworks, I mean, you might be already having those, still meets the regulatory and functional safety requirements post-production. I mean, when the vehicle is already in the production.
All right, that's a good question. So maybe I would like to call the traditional embedded system, once it is flashed and deployed, it's like frozen system, right? Now with the OTA, what is happening is, right, these systems are living systems. Periodically you do the update and you are enhancing the features, or you are disabling some features. So many things you are doing on that. So coming to safety validation, as we know that from functional safety point of view, we are doing a lot of confirmation measures, like the reviews, confirmation reviews, audits, assessments. So everything we are doing, and finally we are concluding to say that the system is validated for safety. So this is how it is being done. But for OTA, with this continuous or with a limited time period, when you are deploying it, you have a challenge on how do you do this safety validation. So that means you need to repeatedly perform all the confirmation reviews. Now, how do you minimize the set of activities? Because many of these activities are repetition. Okay. So if you are able to reuse most of this activity, and new activities you need to only plan for the updated component or element. So what we need to do is always start with updating your safety case. Okay, because in your safety case you progressively compile it and you create an argument that the system is safety validated. So the thing is here, try to identify the components which are undergoing a change and the interfaces related to that, and then make sure that you are performing the three key elements, like the change impact analysis, the HARA and TARA analysis, and refining the safety plan. So these things you can start with. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, if you have a lean process, this will not be a very big task, because already you have done it, and you can just keep it as a repeating process for every iteration. And on top of that, you will be able to do validation only on the incremental component, or on the modular component which is attached to the existing OTA. So that way, I think you can still reduce a good amount of time in performing the safety validation. So then the remaining activities are same, like, okay, create your safety case and make it a deliverable item. In such scenario, it's about planning. How do you plan for this continuous set of activities? So I think if you do that, we will be able to tackle with safety validation for the OTA products. Thank you.
Thanks, Deepu. I think that reusability and building the safety case was a key thing. So now we move to the last round, that is on the life cycle management and the business impact. So I'll start with Satish. Satish, the SDVs demand continuous delivery, or what we call CI, CD, and CT, right? So how is Tech Mahindra, if I may ask you, helping the OEMs integrate these agile methodologies and the CI/CD practices into their traditional development workflows to make it in line with what we are talking today, the digital transformation?
Let me answer that in a different way, and we'll take a use case, right? Imagine a new age car, right? And we saw some ads in the past from Mahindra Group as well. These are new age cars. Imagine you are doing an OTA update on such a car, right? And these cars typically contain 80 to 90 ECUs. About 20 to 30 of them are updated. So let's say you want to update, you do a major update, you want to update 25 ECUs, right? Now we have spent time in the morning understanding that ECUs are like a wide variety, right? They are like not the same. There could be a very traditional ECU, doesn't even have an operating system. There's some with AutoSAR, there are some which support OTA, some which doesn't support OTA, some which support secure OTA, some which don't. Then there are HPCs, zonal computes, gateways, central computes. Right? Each of these is a complex piece of, has its own DevOps and CI/CD already. So the OEM has been developing software on all of this. So now, if you want to build a package which has all of these which you want to update, right, over one OTA package, so we are seeing that first of all we need to work with the OEMs, and OEMs are also seeing a challenge. In fact, one of the OEMs told us the biggest challenge to OTA or SDV for them is setting up this DevOps and finding a way to do this promise, which is over continuous updates, right? So how do we do this? So this is where the challenges comes in, and this is where the tools and the tool chains become important. So we basically help with the tool chains on all these patterns. How do you take all of this, put together a package? Now, once the package is there, that's not the end of the story. We talked about cybersecurity. Now, what does cybersecurity mean? You may want to sign each of these, right? If you have 25 ECUs, you want signature for each one of them, and you're going to update 100K vehicles in the market, you're talking about a large operation of this. We mentioned it has to integrate with ERP systems, payment systems. So we have to integrate with that because that is where. So there's another tool chain which is there. Then typically OTA systems are delivered either or are usually like Bosch has its own OTA system. There are tier 1 based OTA systems. OEMs have developed their own OTA systems. They are hosted on different cloud platforms. You take a package and then you have to upload it to the cloud in a particular format, right? So each format, you have to know the sequence of updating of the ECUs, which is the right one, what happens if something doesn't go on, so on. So there's a lot of work involved there itself. Then the digital twin of it to validate it on the cloud. Then the actual validation on the vehicle itself. Now multiply this by saying I released an SDV vehicle today, I'm releasing one next year, I may have released one last year. You multiply 3 different types of HPCs, 3 different version combinations and so on. Managing this is another tool chain, or managing this is another software. Not to say the least about the like Ravi mentioned, you have to put it on the user interface, or Krishna was mentioning, put it on the user interface, update it, make sure they understand what happens when that doesn't work, what is the rollback, and so on. So these are the areas where OEMs are basically working towards. Put this whole thing together. It's a complex operation. It requires a lot of tools. So this is where companies like Tech Mahindra will step in, and we can help because of the knowledge across various tools. And this is how we are working with our customers. Generative AI is bringing in some new angles to this. One of kind of a POC project which we are doing is where the customer is looking for identification of the code fault based on DTC codes and error codes which are coming from the vehicle. So if you take a sum of all the codes, can you go to the code base and actually look at what could be the issue? And can generative AI suggest such? So integrating this into the tool chain is also an interesting challenge, because you have to work with a predictable system, right? You have to get a code fix which makes sense. So all of these are very, OTA is going to be a game changer, but to get OTA in an SDV is a challenging exercise. This is where I think the OEMs are working towards, and this is where our experience and with the tools and tool chains automation is where we have been able to work with them and deliver some value.
Hello. Yeah. Wow. That was actually very, very good answer. I mean, if I try to extract some of the things what you have said, the DevOps is the biggest challenge for the OEMs, right? And the second is the big picture what you have shown, the ground reality of the actual things when we go to the OTAs, and how Gen AI is actually going to have a specific use case when we talk about how do we integrate. Thank you. Thanks, Satish. Now, if I go to Krishna next. So, I want to bring the A-Spice flavor a bit to this. So, you work with multiple OEMs, right? And the A-Spice is actually very much well integrated, especially with the European OEMs and also at the other regions. So, how do you think the A-Spice process is evolving today to fit the faster software-centric release, what we're talking, right, the CI/CD. So how do you think the A-Spice would fit into these smaller release cycles? Because that is still needed as part of the process what we talk about.
Thanks, Kiran. Hope I'm audible even with all the rains hitting the roof. So before I come to A-Spice, I just wanted to add a couple of things. I think Satish talked about the complexity of managing the software, right? I just wanted to add probably 2 or 3 more components to already complex landscape what Satish talked about. You will have to manage probably the operating system layer. You will have to manage the virtualization layer, right? And if there's any security patches in all of these, those also have to be pushed into the car or the vehicle. So as we know that the cars are mostly static today. I mean, I'm talking about pre-SDV, right? Once manufactured, it is deployed and you know exactly what is the configuration of the car. With SDV coming in, with more software coming in, I call this as continuously getting manufactured car, right? So your software is getting upgraded. On top of all of this, there is personalization. Your car can be completely different than my car because I might be driving in city, you might be going on a hill ride, so you would get a different software probably patch or software feature. So on all of these complex software already which we have, you are adding personalization to this. How do you manage such a granular level of the software bomb, right? This is much, I think, another level of challenge that you will have. So I'll come to the prime question, right? So I would address in 2 aspects. ASPICE or any of these, let's say, specifications define the way of developing a software, the processes, and so on and so forth. I would just cue on to what Deepu said, right? Culture. There should be a culture within the company. Everybody should be educated on safety, security. So one of the things what we are looking at is should we leave it to individuals or an enterprise? For example, we are trying to bring in AI-enabled DevSecOps. So even if the developer or any of the tester is overlooking some of these safety security features, you have the AI or why AI make the DevSecOps more intelligent, more automatable. Take all of these ASPICE or any other regulations, build in some of these rules into your CI/CD pipeline, so that you are very sure and you're not leaving it to an individual, right? You are not overlooking some of these aspects. So your pipeline has to be really more intelligent, especially now an OEM probably has to manage all the software that is coming from all its partners and suppliers, tier ones and many suppliers. Typically, earlier OEM used to get a module, you just fix it into the car. Now OEM is giving him an image or a library, sorry, tier one is giving a image or a software library or software file itself that the OEM is taking it, compiling it, creating a package. So this is another challenge that OEM has to manage, and they have to have a very strong, probably ASPICE driven logic into all of your CI/CD pipeline. I mean, not only ASPICE, I would say 26262, 21434, whatever, what have you, right? And some OEM specific logic. So I think that is what one of the key changes that I would suggest that is going to come through. I mean, previously probably there was like very hard defined processes, ASIL, ABCD. You have all of this. Now, as I said, with continuously manufactured car, how do you define where is your safety, right? So for that, another aspect which I think will happen is you will have to have completely a virtual environment created for these vehicle and the hardware. And I mean, you may call it digital twin, whatever view, right? So if you don't have a completely a twin of every car, you will not be able to manage the software updates, the impact on the updates, the testing, validation. You'll have to do thorough validation before you do an actual drive test, for example, right? So these are some of the things I believe Kiran is going to, I mean, that's what we are looking at, and most of the changes will come for the OEMs tier ones and ESPs like us is what is the process changes that you need to bring?
Thanks, Krishna. And I think even with the frequent updates, what we're talking, the new features coming in, you'll have a lot of requirements getting changed. So you'll have this traceability also to brought in. There's going to be a lot of process, mini process or whatever you call in form of this to come in. Okay. Last question of the last round, and I will take all the summary of whatever you asked, and I will dump it on the OEM now. So, Karthik, to you. From what perspective, so whatever we have discussed till now, the software life cycle that is getting changed through agility, the CI/CD standards what are coming in, right? How do you see these will get translated into the real world outcomes for an OEM with respect to reduced recalls, improved uptime, and the new service models or business models what we are talking now?
Yeah, sure. Because at the end of the day, naturally, how is it going to be working for the customer? How do we avoid recalls, or how do we ensure quality, and how do we ensure uptime? That's the business. With that said, I mean, that lies with the robust DevOps systems we talked about, and of course, we have, I think all of us know about the various verification and validation strategies, right? From V1, V2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 till the acceptance rate. Yes, SDLC, I mean, has played a very, very vital role in addressing these quality aspects of the software and the hardware getting into the vehicles. And now, what next? And we talked about certificate validations or functional safety or cybersecurity. So as we evolve on these aspects, the SDLC evolves as well. And I think gone are the days where the OEMs introduce new features and services into the markets with good amount of testing, and then we hear from the customers for the feedback, and then do the further improvements. Those days are gone. I think it's all proactive measures. So now with the advent of test and data driven development, we have viability to extract sensor and vehicle data from our fleet. And as I said, there are 1 million vehicles, connected vehicles, and data is gold. And how do we use that data into our advanced DevOps systems and do the regressions in all the cycles and keep the systems as close as possible to the customer environment? And that's going to be the key, and that's what we are looking for. And the second aspect is that, I mean, the demand from the customer, especially from OTA, of course, is day by day increasing. Now the customers want OTA to be done, as colleagues were talking about. When a software update is available, the driver has to give an OK and then push the software, download the file. But now the demand from the customers is in such a way that you can have 70 odd nodes in a conventional system, or you can have multiple hypercomputer nodes, but whatsoever, I need uptime. When I'm going to go for a coffee break or a tea break or a lunch break, that's when the OTA has to happen. That's the stringent requirement from the customer. And to do that, when we talk about these hypercomputers, which are running so many modules, it can only be done by robust DevOps systems. So if you're not going to have a vehicle software factory, which is going to have all these tested thoroughly as much as possible to the customer ecospace, it's not going to work for the customer. So we rely largely on the advanced DevOps systems in changes in the SDLC to validate all the functional, non-functional, safety, cybersecurity requirements. As we do the functional requirements, it's going to be the future. So that's how OEMs, we depend on robust SDLC evolution.
Thank you. Thanks, Karthik. I think that says that DevOps and software factories are going to be the next future around all this what we are talking. Okay, so we come at the end of this panel. If I just want to close this panel with one quick comment from each one of you, and my question is actually a little bit on when do you see the other domains start getting into SDVs? Today we only talk about IVI getting OTAs, right? We are not getting into the safety critical OTAs yet. So what do you see? Are you talking to customers already on these safety critical OTAs happening? Are they under POC? So it's just 1 minute. What do you see? When do you see these things will happen? Maybe we'll start from left. Krishna, will start from you.
Yeah, see, I think it's still maturing, right? It has to, I mean, when you said today, mostly the OTA happens on IVI, infotainment, and so on and so forth, right? Can I do a upgrade and change my powertrain logic? It has to come through. It will mature because the technology also is maturing. But I'm sure those days are not far. For example, we keep looking at on-demand feature, right? I mean, some of the vehicles have today. For example, if I have take my vehicle to a snowy mountain or a hilly ride, I can get an update to change my powertrain capacity or performance, right? So it is going to happen. I mean, probably the days are not far.
I think, as Krishna said, this is evolving as well, right? There's already safety critical systems being updated, like the drivetrain, like Tesla adding more power, or even Porsche adding more power, and so on, right? BMS systems are also getting updated, so, but we are not seeing, say, braking system getting updated, but these will come. These will come. The key technology change which will happen is how to re-architect. How do you distinguish between what is core, which part has to be really safety critical, which you will not change, versus an algorithm or something which can potentially be updated. So if you re-architect, this is what we are seeing our customers trying to do. So then you can update those. Right? So that's the way I think this will evolve. There will be more and more features which has to be provided to the customer, and some of them have to be safety critical. We cannot say only the high-end, user. You'll have to provide some of these things as updates as well. So for that, the key technology is re-architecting.
Yeah, I agree with my co-panelist. This is the need. What I can see, what we discuss with the OEMs is, it saves you almost. You can do it at 5% of the cost. That is the cost money, because if you recall the vehicle, is going to increase. Having said that, then all the OEMs, whenever we are discussing, they need to have a central gateway and the master POTA ECU and a memory area that they are requesting. Whether they do it on the functional safety or cybersecurity, that's their prerogative based on how critical is this. This is happening. It's going to happen in future. All vehicle will have. Then they have a prerogative what needs to be updated. But having said that, this brings multifold of partners into the field, right from the ECU suppliers to the web services and the cloud services. What helps us, we talked about all the validation and verification. The key is, the requirement documents is agreed upon. Then comes the development interface agreement for the functional safety. Then CIA document. These with the RASIC chart will enable going forward. That's what we do.
Yeah, I mean, with so many advancements and that we are talking about SDVs, I mean, the ground expectation from a customer is safety critical vehicles, and then which are robust enough, efficient, high uptime, and then with the best quality. That's what the customers expect. And with that said, what is that OTA is going to do? Yes, today, of course, when we talk about OTA to our customers, yes, they're pretty happy. But then there is an amount of intervention of the driver or the backend systems. That's what we see. So there is a need. If you push application or the bootloader or cybersecurity patches whatsoever, there are some preconditions for a vehicle to be met, to push the software. I think that still has to by and large grow, evolve, and there should be a situation using these SDVs and the enablers. How do you make it as a pull mechanism? So today it's more of a push, but then it has to be an auto-driven pull mechanism usage of digital twins whatsoever, but then there should be minimal intervention of the systems that impact the uptime and the usage of the vehicles. So if you're going to go to a stage where we can do that with utmost security and safety, then OTA is definitely a future game changer.
Okay. So, yeah, I agree to my co-panelist has told about, but I have a different perspective from the technology side. I just want to ask you one question, like how many of you have performed software safety analysis? Just one person in this crowd. Okay, good. Yeah, so this is going to bring up additional challenge. For example, asset decomposition, we usually do it at the system level, and very few people do it at the software level because it doesn't make sense doing it at the software level. Now, when everything is software driven and the critical and non-critical software are communicating each other, and when we do an update on the critical software, it becomes a challenging task to prove the FFI and DFA, freedom from interference and dependent failure analysis. So this is an open question because we have not come across such a scenario so far, but very soon I believe we will be coming across such scenario where the decomposition need to be done on the software requirements, and we need to perform software safety analysis to prove FFI and DFA. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. I think that was a good summary of whatever we have. I think we can take one or two questions if there are any from the audience. Okay, here is one.
Hello, this is Hallikeri, Director of Architecture Solutions, Bangalore. So I would like to ask one question. So you have been telling that space and function safety and all, right? And we use AI techniques, artificial intelligence or generative AI techniques to implement the AI space standards or function safety standards. Can you eliminate human interface at least 50% or 40%?
So if you look at, am I audible? I won't say 100% eliminate the physical part of it. If you look at a lot of things today, if you look at even in the digital engineering, we do a lot of virtual validation. You would have heard about simulations, you go and do structural simulations, CFDs and all of that, right? So extend that, you can do multimodal simulations, multi-system, multifunctional simulations, most of it virtually. I mean, one of the key things of SDV is you can develop software decoupled with the actual hardware, right? I mean, we have decoupled electronics with mechanical with the sensors. So now you'll have to decouple the software with probably both the electronics and mechanical. I won't say 100%, but as I said, things are evolving by doing all of these virtual validations, virtual simulations, doing mostly without having an actual physical hardware. But that will not eliminate completely.
Completely, at least 40 to 32%, 30 to 40% you can automate and through AI based, and the rest of the things human interface is required as per my view.
Probably going further, it might
increase slowly when we keep developing the algorithm.
Correct. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for answering.
Thank you. So concluding part, yeah, I would like to first thanks to all panelists for giving the diverse perspective and also to the audience to remain awake throughout the panel discussion. Okay, the final takeaway, what I would like to say is the OTAs are going to have the safety and security as non-negotiable foundation, right? I mean, we cannot negotiate on this. And also the OTAs are not only about recalls and fixing issues, but they are also going to open new business models for the automotive industry going ahead. Thank you. Thanks again to everyone for listening peacefully. And